Hello, Joe. Thanks so much for joining us. Quick introductions. My name is Samir Venugopal, and I am the Senior Vice President at Knowledge Hut, leading our sales efforts for North America and the rest of the globe as well. I'm really happy to be here and talking to you. I'm really apologetic as well. I was trying to get my audio back on from a presentation I did a little earlier last evening. And I think I'd hooked up to some speakers, causing a glitch. Apologies. I'm sure these kind of glitches won't happen going forward. This journey for us with Scaled Agile and bringing transformation conversations around Agile, it's a tripartite journey for us. We've already done 2 such sessions, one for customers in the Europe and MEA region, the second for India and APAC, and culminating with this effort in North America. Quick acknowledgement and thanks to our partners in this journey, Scaled Agile, particularly Joe, who himself is a SAFE fellow and has kindly consented to lead the plenary for us. So thank you, Joe. Also take this opportunity to give a warm shout out to friends and partners, Harry joining in from Canada, Mansoor from Australia, and Kumar from India. These speakers were kind enough to accommodate the time zone differences so we can have a diverse global view at the roundtable, which I'm sure you guys are going to enjoy. They have collectively trained and coached many thousand learners across the globe. And they continue to do that for our customers in North America. I'm sure we'll all benefit from their experience and wisdom. This is this 3-part sessions that we've been doing along with Scaled Agile. It's among the first for us in this format. The format involves having everybody as a participant and a panelist. So everybody gets to hear your views, which are really important. So feel free to share them. Let there be a lot of interaction in these breakout rooms. We really want to know what the challenges are that you're facing. And if we can in any way help, identify solutions to a few of them. I'm not sure we're going to get to the actual solution itself, but maybe give you a framework to think, then please do feel free to air them. We have collective wisdom from across multiple geographies to support you. The whole idea and purpose of doing this is to build a really strong, safe community, and Knowledge Hut is committed to doing that. We are serious partners for Scaled Agile. We are, on the way to the gold partnership with Scaled Agile. And I'm sure, that with the efforts that the community does and with the interchange of information, we're going to have a lot of collaboration going with the community, right? And that only makes everybody get stronger at what they're doing. So sit back, kind of relax and enjoy the sessions. I know there has been an opening glitch in technology, but we've tested it before in 2 other sessions earlier this month. And I think, it works perfectly fine. If you have any glitches, we have our breakout jockey, Shaiz, who is available. So the format's going to be this, that you start with the general session. At the end of the general session, you will receive a link, and clicking that link will take you to the panels that we've pre-decided. If you're not, for any reason, taken directly to the panel, feel free just to ping us on the chat, and Shaiz will, kind of move you into the panel so you can have a really great roundtable discussion. Wishing you all a great experience. Do remember to rate the event on the survey link that you receive at the end. Your feedback helps us get better each time. So thank you once more. And Shruti, over to you.
Thank you, Samir. Glad to have you back. I think we did the introduction on your behalf, but happy that you were able to resolve.
Oh, so sorry about that.
Right on time, because we're all waiting to hear Joe.
Joe was just in the middle of his presentation, right? Over to you, Joe. Thanks.
Joe, over to you now. I hope I did justice to reading out your profile. Over to you. We're all looking forward to hearing from you.
All right, thank you. And also, yes, the survey is important unless you don't like what I'm saying. in which case change the name from Joe Valone to Samir. All right. You want to put that in there, and his spelling is underneath his picture. So we're good there. All right, let's get moving. So the challenge of the digital age. So with the introduction, that was so kind of you guys. I'd like to explain to you as an engineer, what problem are we trying to solve? Here's the issue. Those who master large-scale software delivery will define the economic landscape of the 21st century. This comes from Mick Kirsten, who did a tremendous amount of, Dr. Mick Kirsten, who did a tremendous amount of research around this subject. Used to work with him, not in the same place, but I used to
sorry,
work.
Joe, you're not sharing.
Oh, that's interesting. It says it's sharing.
I think Shais needs to stop sharing. And yeah, now we can see it. Sorry, and thank you.
Oh, good. I'm glad you were able to have not had that happen before. So thanks for spotting that. Technology is great when it works, right? So, all right, cool. So this is Mick Kirsten. He wrote a book called Project to Product. And this has been an influence in the Scaled Agile framework as of recently. And it's just something that we've always known and always talked about within the framework ever since probably version 2 or 2.5 that we've really talked about more flow-based, and then Mick really capitalized it. So what do we mean by that? What do we mean by defining the landscape of the 21st century? Well, here's some examples. BMW, right, is one of those types, and they've shifted half of their research and development, and they show up in Mick's book. They've shifted half of their development to software. So they moved away from hardware development to software development. Early on in my career, I used to work on an operating system that was embedded into the brakes of automobiles. So, and that was, I don't know, a couple of decades or more ago, more than a couple of decades ago. So this stuff has been evolving for a very, very long time. Tesla has a larger market cap than Ford and GM combined now. Why? Does Tesla make more cars than Ford and GM? Does Tesla have more models of cars than Ford and GM? No, absolutely not. They're at a 14-to-1 value ratio there. Apple, right? They're now the biggest watchmaker in the world. Well, what's happening is these people are looking at technology not as the product, not really even as the service. They're looking at it strictly as the enabler, the delivery mechanism for all these things. If you talk to Tesla, they don't really consider themselves a car company. They're a technology company, and their car is the vehicle, no pun intended, for the technology delivery. And that's the same thing with Apple. It's the same thing with other car companies that are trying to adapt to this. So mastering the digital landscape is critical to the importance of this. And there are several others that we can talk about. But why? Why is this becoming so critical? What's the reasoning behind it? Well, we switched to one of my previous professors. I was lucky enough to have John Cotter teach one of my organizational change classes in graduate school. And what he says here is really the reasoning behind this. The world is now changing at a speed which is mind-boggling. And when I say the world is now changing, what do we mean by that? The systems, the structures, the cultures, all of these things that have been built up in the previous centuries now are buckling with the amount of demands that are placed on them. Apple has to switch fast. Microsoft has to switch fast. All these behemoth of companies, and a lot of them are really keeping up with it. But we have to do this in our companies too, unless we want to just work for 15 trillionaires, which we all may end up doing if we're not careful about how we do this. So what's the reasoning? So how did this occur? Well, we started with a network. You can think about when Knowledge Hut was just a startup, right? There was just maybe 1 or 2 people. And the way that you had to grow your business, I know this is true for Scaled Agile. When I joined Scaled Agile, I was employee number 25. SPCT number 20. So we grew. We're about 150 people now. When I joined, there was only 25 of us. We were a small network. We were a small network of people. And the way we knew how to grow was, well, let me see if I can have a little fun here and do a little bit of annotating around this. Let's do the spotlight. Cool. So we knew here, we were concentrating all on our customers. That was the main thrust of everything we were doing. As we grew, things started to change. And what we knew was we also had to create a hierarchy. And this on the right is what most people are familiar with. As they start growing, you need to put processes and procedures in place to be able to accommodate that growth. What you're looking for is stability and eventually some degree of efficiency after that. I think most of you can tell what happens though, as we go through this over a long period of time, as we grow, we stop focusing on the customer. It's no longer customer centricity is not the main goal of what we're looking at. We start to concentrate exclusively on this organization to the right. We start to worry about roles and we start to worry about hierarchy, and we stop really with all the different kinds of free-form communications we had in a network. So John Cotter, who's really been at this change stuff for about, 6 decades or so. He's not just an academic, he also runs Cotter International, which is a Fortune 50 consulting firm, or I should say they really just target the Fortune 50 companies because that's pretty much anybody that can afford John Cotter. But John is, he's looked at this and figured out, well, here's the solution. The solution is not to trash what we know and start over, but instead introduce a second operating system, ones that will be familiar to most successful entrepreneurs, like what we had in the beginning. So John Cotter, Dr. John Cotter doesn't say, well, we're switching to Agile now and we're going to do lean. So forget all that other stuff. Just trash that, fire all the managers, start over. No. That's not what he's saying. He's saying both should coexist because they have two different purposes. So what does that mean? Well, as we start to go forward, we look at this dual operating system and we say, oh, well, this is interesting. So we can have both coexisting. We can have one, which is focused on the efficiency and stability. Okay, so this is the current hierarchy. This is the diagram on the right, but that we also need to have this speed of innovation, this insane focus on customer centricity. Well, gee, can we do both? Is that possible? Can we still be a larger company and still be insanely focused on customer centricity? Yes, you can. I worked at Apple for a while. Apple is insanely focused on a customer. Nothing they do or say gets sent out into the marketplace without looking at it from a customer point of view and really digging into the empathy aspects. What is the customer feel? How are they going to react to this change? What are they going to do? And those are things that have to be taken into account. And that's what this network focuses on. But we have this other thing over here, stability. How in the two are we going to match? Well, in SAFE, this organization as a network is really what we call a virtual organization. And so what you're going to be working on is virtual within the organization, meaning just because you're working on something of value and it may cut across this hierarchy on the right, doesn't mean that you have to change who you're reporting to and change all of the structures and pick up your boxes and move to a different cube or any of that other stuff. No, you stay put. You can still report to whoever you're reporting to. You can still do what you're doing, but we do have a different format, and we format this with a operating system that focuses on the value stream and flow and delivery of value, where the customer centricity is at the center. And that second operating system is known as SAFE, which interacts with the functional hierarchy. So you won't find anybody from SAFE going into a company like Apple and go, you guys really aren't organized around value. How about we just change everything that you guys have been doing, and we'll just go back to being like in Steve Jobs' garage in Palo Alto, California. They're going to go, yeah, no, goodbye. So you'll last about 10 seconds there if you're going to come across and say, yeah, you're not delivering value to your customers. So we have to have both. So if we implement both of these, what are we going to gain from this? Why are we doing this? We know what some of the causes are. We've gone through that, but what are we going to achieve by doing something like this? Well, the main goal is business agility. That's what we're trying to achieve. Meaning the old traditional approach is way too slow. So we would take 18, 24 months, some cases longer, trying to do a project, going through the old waterfall implementation cycle. And there would be, I mean, they're being kind of generous here by having a single redo arrow that goes all the way back to the beginning. And we found out that as we start traipsing through this requirements, design, implementation, verification and implementation are probably where the learning is. This is where we actually start to learn that the things that we're doing, whether they're working or not. And very often those come back to do, let's say it took 3 months to do your requirements, 3 months to do your design, 3 months, another 3 months to do your implementation. Now you're in testing. And by that point in time, you're probably over schedule. So you crashed the schedule and gave the testers about 2 weeks to finish up what they should have had before. So what happens is you end up learning, and as you learn, you have to incorporate that learning, which means you may end up going back to the beginning, and you do this over and over and over again as you learn stuff. So somebody got the bright idea and said, you know what, we ought to shorten all of these cycles so that our learning comes faster and we can respond to our learnings faster. And this is essentially encapsulates part of what business agility is. This is our ability to compete and thrive. What changes? Everything changes. You could have a project. If we go back to this and we look at a project for 18 to 24 months, what can change in 18 to 24 months? Can technology change in 18 to 24 months? Better believe it. Can our customers change in that amount of time? Yep. Could they change their minds? Absolutely, they could change their minds. There's a lot of different influences in there. So if we want to master the digital age, if we want to thrive in that, we have to leverage these market changes. You know, we have principles in SAFe that say exactly that. Is we know that there's going to be variability and we need to address that variability, and we can leverage that variability. We are not in manufacturing, okay? Manufacturing is pretty clear. They seek to minimize variability. You get paid for following a recipe so that the widget coming off the assembly line is exactly the same as the widget that left the assembly line. And some percentage of those is going to be defective. And we already know that. We can quantify that. We're dealing with software. We're dealing with cyber physical. We're dealing with a number of different opportunities here. And none of them are exactly the same as what came before. So this is a completely different way of doing this. And we have to maximize and leverage that variability. In order to do that, we have to get everybody on board. Business agility is not an IT thing. If you go back, and I've been saying this for years as an Agile coach, if you go back to the beginning, if you go and you make engineering Agile, okay, or you go back and you make IT Agile, so what? Who cares? If the business is not able to leverage that, your transformation, I'm sorry to say, is pretty useless. Sure, you may execute much quicker. Sure, you may get feedback quicker, but if the business can't make use of that, if they cannot leverage this, you're not going to get very far with just part of the company Agile. So this requires everyone. Wait, does that mean finance needs to learn agility? Yep. Does that mean HR? Yep. Marketing? Sure, them too. Legal? Lawyers? Yep, absolutely. They're all part of this, okay? They all have a role to play. So if they're involved in any part of the value delivery model, then they're part of this business agility solution. So one of the things that we have to do, and this didn't just come from Mick, but Mick Kirsten talks a lot about it. Alan Ward has talked a lot about this. Mary Poppendiek has talked a lot about this. And this is really about applying lean to the development of software and cyber physical systems. And so this is all about capturing the flow of value and then using that to reduce overall lead time. And we do this by using value streams. So this is a concept, and this ties in to what Mick said in the very beginning. We're not looking at projects. Projects are containers. Projects have no value in and of themselves. The thing, the solution or system that you are delivering to the customer has the value. The project itself does not. It's nothing more than a container. So all we're really looking for is we're looking to capture that flow of value to our customers and reducing the lead time. This ties directly into what Mick was saying, moving from project to product flow. In other words, let's look at the Apple example again. You may be working for a value stream in Apple, and all you do is cameras. You do a value stream that produces cameras. As part of that group of people that work on that value stream, you really don't care who's using the cameras. In other words, it could be a MacBook, it could be an iPhone, it could be an iPad. The only thing you really know are the features. Yeah, somebody there probably cares whether those camera development activities are going into an iPad or an iPhone, but that's all you're doing. You're just following this flow on steps, and the things that are coming in here for you to work on are the features. Apple looks at their stuff as products, okay? They don't need a project for a new camera on an iPhone. They already know the probability is 100% that the next iPhone is going to have a camera. Do they know that that camera is going to be AR camera? No. Do they know it's going to be an 8 megapixel, 12 megapixel, 14 megapixel lens? No. They don't know any of those things. They do know that they are going to have a camera. So why do they need a project for a camera? They don't. They know it's going to be there. So all we need to do is fund the flow of value. We already know what that is. We know the number of people that are involved in this. We know the length of time that are involved in this. That's what we're looking to do, is increase the flow. How do we do that? Well, Taiichi Ohno and the Toyota production system know that. Most of the problems in your process will surface as delays. As Don Reinertson says in Principles of Product Development Flow, we monitor the queues. If queues decrease, we could end up starving a product. If they start growing, then we might have a different problem as far as delays upstream. So most of the processes will surface as delays. We like to think of them sometimes as bottlenecks if they're severe enough. Most of the time spending getting time to market is the result of these delays, i.e. your lead time increases. We're looking to decrease lead time. And reducing the fastest ways and reducing delays is the fastest way to reduce time to market. Everybody wants faster time to market. If you want faster time to market, reduce the lead time. How to reduce the lead time? Reduce the delays in your systems. Nobody can justify delays. Does your company have a vice president of delays? Let me say this differently. You might have a vice president somewhere in your system that is causing a delay. That's not what I'm asking. Do you have a role or position that says you're in charge of delays? No, you don't. And the reason you don't is because it's not valuable. Delay is by definition waste, meaning it's not adding any value to your value stream. So those have to be reduced. So what are we looking at? This is more reasonable, 2 to 6 months to get something out the door. Well, what do you mean by something? Could be a minimum viable product, could be something else, but it's a smaller time, and that smaller time means faster feedback. This is a new way of working. We also need to measure this. We need to measure this, and we have the business agility assessment that we use. but we need to measure the competencies. We need to measure the flow through this. We have to measure the outcomes. We're not interested in output. Oh, wow, you delivered this many story points. If your customers aren't able to use what you're delivering, what's the point? You delivered crappy stuff really fast. That's not going to work. So it's got to be of value. And we have to measure that value. Look, if you were going through an agile transformation, I know some companies that I've worked with have spent tens of millions of dollars. And some of the larger consulting firms, they may have even spent more than that. Isn't it reasonable to expect that your leaders are going to expect a return on that business? They absolutely should, and those things should absolutely be measured. To do that, we not only have the business agility assessment, where we're looking to respond to business opportunities quicker, we also have these 7 core competencies that are part of the SAFE framework that help us in terms of gaining business agility and then measuring that value that we're delivering. We do not have time in this presentation to go through each one of these core competencies, but they all have a role to play in the overall makeup of business agility in your organization. Okay. John Kotter has a roadmap that we have adopted to do this. He has 8 steps that he uses as far as leading change. Leading Change was his seminal book that came out, I don't know how long ago, but a long time ago when he was still teaching, actively teaching at Harvard. And this is, and he's done other presentations like at MIT and Stanford and places like that. But these are some of the keys to actually leading this, because whenever we're doing this kind of new way of working, no matter how you call, even if you weren't doing SAFE, let's just say, hey, we're switching from what we've done before to lean. We're switching from waterfall to agile. We're switching from generic veteran flavor agile to a scaling system like SAFE. Anytime you do that, it's going to include a culture change. So the culture change has to be managed and expectations are going to be managed. Why? If you don't do this, people are going to be asking, why did we do that change? And if you can't justify that, if you're giving just cute, trite answers, people are going to struggle with the reasons behind the change. So people need to understand not just that you're doing a change, but why. What's the reason behind it? What are we trying to fix? So change without that kind of strategy rarely succeeds. What we've done is we've taken John Kotter's 8 steps and we've created the SAFE implementation roadmap. This is how we start to transition an organization to achieve business agility. These are the things that we're looking to do. And this is sort of a step-by-step, even though it looks like an old board game from the 70s or something. This is the step-by-step things that we do to transform an organization. And you'll notice right up front, we don't pull any punches. We got to train leaders. We got to train managers. First off, we know that they need to have the ability to understand the things that we're doing, and that information cannot be received from your traditional business schools. So framework side of things, we have the SAFE framework that helps establish the basis for this business agility and the different levels of this that is appropriate to the type of organization that you're trying to model. And this is business agility at its finest. And this is the second operating system that we're recommending. You can't just get there with courseware alone. There's the coaching, consulting, teaching that goes on with the framework itself. And we have that encapsulated within our courseware. And this has a lot of depth in terms of the specifics within the SAFE framework, how to implement it, how to train in it. And then we have the SAFE practices. So it's more than just the training, it's the coaching, consulting practices, and the intellectual property that we have on the framework. None of this is possible without our partners, and of which Knowledge Hut is one of our great partners. So Knowledge Hut we use to support this. Think about it, folks. We're now 150 people. So explain to me, how does a company of 150 people located in the small-ish town of Boulder, Colorado, how do we support FedEx? How do we support four of the largest banks the five largest banks in the world? How do we support the Microsofts, the Nikes? The answer is we can't. Not as a singular company. That's impossible. You're talking about people with hundreds of thousands of employees. We can't. You can. We can teach you. We can utilize our partners, and we can tie all of this goodness together. Our partners are also trained. We bring them up to speed on new products and new services. Safe enterprise is what we're calling this collection of things, right? So this collection of things that includes the intellectual property, the courseware, as well as the tools and practices to be able to do this. So tools like Safe Collaborate, tools like the business agility assessment, those types of things that are resident within our own community platform are all part of this. So we do need our partners like Knowledge Hut, and they've been great at supporting us in that. What can we expect? These are some of the numbers that we've gathered. Full disclosure, these are aggregate numbers. We're not targeting a specific company. So your numbers may vary a little bit here, but these are the results that some of our customers have actually gotten. We didn't create these numbers. We didn't make them up. This is what our customers told us, and we tend to believe them. So if they tell us this good news and we get permission from them, we will share it. There are other companies who've had this kind of good news. They look at SAFE as an advantage, sort of a secret sauce, if you will, and they don't want to advertise that they're using it for fear of tipping off competitors and whatnot. So anyways, these are some realistic expectations. And that, my friends, was a fast presentation so that we could get into our breakout rooms or I don't know if we have time, perhaps Ruthie or somebody can tell me, do we have time for questions or do we go right into breakout rooms? What's next?
So what next is, of course, we have the three other presenters for today, Harry, Kumar, and Mansoor with us. So I'm going to thank you for your presentation, Joe. We're moving ahead to quick introductions to Harry, Kumar, and Mansoor. About a little bit about Harry, our next presenter for this event. Harry is joining us all the way from Vancouver, Canada, believes his life's professional mission is to transform the world of business through agile scale implementations. Harry is the author of a book called Legendary Consulting, a certified SAFE coach and trainer, and has been involved in agile implementations for over a decade. In this process, he's worked closely with 100+ business entities and trained over 30,000 professionals across the world on different business topics. Partnered with Knowledge Hut for the last 7 years, Harry was also judged as one of the top 9 speakers and trainers in North America by Toastmasters International, which is the world's leading authority in communication and leadership. Today, he's going to be presenting his lessons learned from his vast experience. And of course, the next 10 minutes will be a very quick keynote by Harry, before which I would like to introduce Mr. Mansoor and Kumar Manu as well. A little bit about Mansoor. Mansoor is a certified strategy, innovation, portfolio, program, project, risk, organizational change, scaled agile consultant, entrepreneur, speaker, practitioner, business leader, and agile consultant with 35 relevant, globally renowned certifications to deliver business value. Mr. Mansoor is working with large corporates and government clients to find better ways to work through agile innovation and design interventions, leveraging proven work frames, scaled agile framework, Kanban, Scrum, Lean, Agile, and so on, to empower people to accomplish complex work fast and effectively. He's also delivered complex business agile transformational programs and projects, which include setting up of enterprise portfolio, program, and project management competency center to enable efficient delivery of programs. He's delivered 1,000+ programs globally from a catalog of more than 200 training sessions. That's a little bit about Mansoor, a bit about Kumar. Kumar is a senior business IT agile PMO program portfolio project manager with cultural experience in strategy and planning, execution. He has been an entrepreneur with business acumen and passion for results. He's a skilled facilitator, communicator, and trusted relationships builder for C-level executives, external, internal, global, remote teams, and cross-functional SMEs. He has a multicultural experience. He's set up 24/7 global IT shared services operation for GE and McKinsey. He's led a procurement and supply chain cost-saving initiative for Caterpillar during the 2008 financial crisis for over a $15 million benefit. So the next 10 minutes will be a quick presentation, a keynote by Mr. Harry Narang. We're looking forward to that, followed by which we will have the breakout room sessions on 2 topics. One topic being driving innovation in the enterprise with lean thinking and SAFE, which is moderated by Mansoor Mohammed. And the second topic being critical success factors or potential failure modes in successfully implementing Agile at scale, which is moderated by Kumar Manu. We will have Joe and Harry as well as part of the sessions, who they'll be part of both my bits. But yeah, over to you, Harry. I think we're running slightly late, participants. Apologies about that. But Harry, over to you for a quick 10-minute presentation, followed by the keynote followed by the breakout sessions.
Totally. Thanks, Rudy. Hello, everybody. Good to see you all. Everybody hear me okay? Yeah,
Yes.
cool. Great. So the purpose of my presentation is to build on top of what Joe walked us through and see how we can take all of that information, all the frameworks, the best practices, principles that SAFE is developing, and how we can turn that into practice so that we can transform those practices and principles, competencies into some real business results. So quick check-in. Raise your hand or use the reaction feature on Zoom to tell me if you're working in some kind of agile model. Quick check-in. Raise your hand or the thumbs up on Zoom if you're working in some kind of an agile model. Great. Another check-in. Raise your hand if you think you're experiencing some level of challenge. You think your agile implementation should have been done a little bit differently. Maybe there was, you put the cart before the horse, so to speak. So raise your hand if you're seeing some kind of challenges with how it was implemented. Okay, most of us, right? And that is because thank you. That is because agile transformations are hard, but that is because change is hard, as Joe said, right? Change is difficult, but it is needed. Scaled agile proficiency can become one of the most important competitive advantages of our business. One of those things that we see consistently in our scaled agile transformations, and I'm sure Joe, Manu, Mansoor, you'd agree as well, is that we really transform the culture of the business. We really transform how people show up at work, how people engage with their clients, which eventually takes businesses to the next level. And that is partially why many of our clients don't even want to disclose their names. We're under very strict NDAs most of the time, to the point we can't even disclose the names of the clients that we are working with. So it can be an ultimate competitive advantage. And what we want to look at in the next few minutes is how can we make it somewhat predictable to deliver results? How can we make it seamless so that we can actually achieve the results that we initially set out for? So my transformation is going to walk you through that proven roadmap that we have learned and developed from our experience, which aligns with the SAFe transformation roadmap, with highlights on the 5 key secrets to successful SAFe transformations. And what we've found is that these 5 secrets, which are going to be represented in our 5 primary steps that we never want to miss out on, 5 primary milestones of a successful SAFe transformation that would eventually deliver the results that we want to produce. So as I go in, my presentation is going to be very concise, but keep an eye out for those 5 primary steps, which are the secrets of successful SAFe transformations. In there, I'm going to share with you some real experiences, some real implementations from certain clients that have given us the permission to share some minor details about them. Because as I said, most of the time we're under very strict NDAs to the point we can't even disclose the names of our clients. So let's look at it. Let's dive in. Step number 1 is about generating buy-in. And this comes from my experience of working with a multi-billion-dollar manufacturing business. This business is based out of Europe, but has huge presence here in US as well. And we started working with them in 2017. And now you fast forward 4 years, they have a proficient SAFe implementation in their practices. And as we look back and we ask some of our colleagues over there as to what enabled us to successfully implement SAFe in our operations, and everybody has a similar response. What's the response? It was our ability to generate buy-in from key stakeholders pre-transformation. Now that's the catch. Pre-transformation is the catch. Anybody here has experience with organizational change management? Quick check-in. Seen changes being implemented changes. Mansoor, Ajinkya, yeah, Tila, Samir, right? So correct me if I'm wrong. Our ability to implement changes successfully in an organization relies extensively on our ability to build and maintain trust with our key stakeholders. Would you agree? Right? That is what it eventually boils down to, because it's not us who's going to be implementing changes, it's our people that are going to implement changes. And have you seen that people can find a way to make anything not work when they don't want to? Right? Have you seen that? They can find a way why Agile is not for our type of business, why story points are not going to work for us, why we can't work in iterations, why program increments are a crazy idea, and so on. They can find a way to make anything not work if they're not bought in. So the first step is to generate that buy-in. And that is what we did in this scenario. We selected 120 of our key stakeholders out of about 600 plus people in that portfolio. So selected 120 of them, and we took them through our course that is called Leading SAFe. It was delivered in 4 batches of 30 people each, approximately, so that we could help them understand what is it that we're trying to do, why is it important, what is the consequence of not doing it, and more importantly, how can they support the transformation. That's step number 1. And that's a real photo from one of those sessions in 2017. Good, right to dive into step 2. Step 2 is about, now this comes from our experience with the US Air Force, did a lot of work with the US Air Force in 2015-16. I personally was working almost exclusively with the US Air Force, helping them implement Agile SAFe in many of their agencies and portfolios. And the second step is always the same, but ironically, very, very often missed. And what's the step? Identifying your value streams. Looking at what is it that we deliver as value to this end customer. As Joe said, right? That's what Apple does. They look at what is it that we deliver? What is it that we sell to an end customer that eventually delivers that value? And then starting to look at how do we deliver that value? What are the steps that we take to get up to that endpoint? Who are the people that are involved in delivering that value? right? We sometimes metaphorically refer to those value streams as quote unquote factories of people that are going to work collaboratively and deliver that end customer value predictably with higher quality. So that's step number 2. With me so far? Yeah, okay. Step number 3 is going to be about, now so far nothing has changed, right? With me? Everything is still on paper. We've generated buy-in, but still nothing has been transformed. So step number 3 is going to be about starting to make those changes, which is about selecting one of our value streams initially and doing what we call a value stream launch. So this comes from our experience of working with a global logistics company. And this value stream launch in the form of a release train launch was done out of Hyderabad, India. And the reason it was done out of India was that's where the biggest chunk of our value stream was located. This one value stream was spread across 15 different countries. There's people in this photo. This photo was taken after a first PI planning meeting. And there's people here from Middle East, US, Canada, South America, Europe, all over the place that flew into this room for 2.5, 3 weeks to do what we call a value stream launch. And what happens in those 2.5, 3 weeks? Everybody gets trained on their roles. Scrum masters get training on their roles. Product owners get training on their roles. Team members get training on their roles. We help them prioritize the backlog, set up our features for our PI planning. And then once that first PI planning, which is a program increment planning meeting for the next 8 to 12 weeks worth of work, once we have that first PI planning meeting, that is when we call that a value stream has been launched. What's the secret here? The secret is very simple. It is the importance of training. One of my mentors, Richard Naster, who got me involved in SAFe and also kind of inspired me to become an SBC and get involved in SAFe implementations, he would often say this to me. He'd say, Harry, if there is one magic bullet in successful SAFe transformations, it is training. And if there is anything more important than that, probably good training. Because any training can deliver the information, but good training delivers buy-in on the concept. And buy-in is what we need to make something work. So step number 3, again, ironically often missed. Here is what we see happen 60% of the time. That's my personal biased stat. This is what we see happen 60% of the time. Portfolios send 2 people to a 2-day training program, and then those 2 people are asked to come back and implement everything that they learned. Anybody seen that happen? Give me a thumbs up in chat or on Zoom if you've seen something like that happen. 2 people sent to a 2-day training and asked to come back and implement everything that they learned, transform the culture of the organization, and embark upon one of the most challenging change management efforts that an organization could get on. And that is why many times we do not deliver the level of results that we wanted to. So step 3, with me so far? All good, Mansoor, Manu? Cool. Okay, let's go into step 4. Now that we've launched one value stream, we want to support that value stream. And this is where, this experience from a Canadian public sector healthcare company. This company runs about 14 hospitals in one portion of Canada. And what this shows is we have to go, once we launch a value stream, we have to go team by team to help them out, to get up to speed on their key practices. For example, helping them set up their Kanban boards, helping them support their sprint planning meetings. What do they do in a daily stand-up? How do they refine stories and refine their backlog and prioritizing them and getting ready for a sprint demo and so on, right? Those events are critical because what is that smallest building block of our machine? It is a team, right? What produces value in a release train or in a value stream is our teams. So if our teams are broken, our value streams are broken. So to go team by team to help them come up to speed on what practices they're supposed to use. And here's a real, report out that I did for the leadership over here. Now look at this. Squad 7, and this client wanted to call them squads. Scrum implementation done, which means they are using primary Scrum practices in their operations. Jira has been done, and next steps are these, right? So we have to go team by team, looking at how we can support those teams in executing to the best of their ability. And that is step number 4, building team level Scrum proficiency. With me so far? So that's step 4. How do you eat an elephant? In our world, one value stream at a time, right? So this is one value stream, and repeat the process over and over again. You can go multiple at a time if you have enough coaching and training capacity, but typically it helps to limit your whip as you're transforming that organization. So that's step 4. Finally, the last step that closes the gap with the highest level of business agility possible is lean portfolio management practices. And this comes from our experience with working with one of the world's leading telecom companies. And this was a photo after our first LPM meeting. And LPM eventually boils down to these primary things, these 3 things. Number 1, right org structure and funding model, where our structures and funding practices enable faster and more predictable value delivery, where people are organized such that they can work closely with people that they need to work with. Right approval process for new investments, a streamlined approach to identify innovation and fund innovation. Would you agree? What's making us successful today is not going to keep us successful 20 years from now, right? We have to come up with new things. And this is more applicable today than ever before in the history of business. And we're starting to see that. Have you noticed that the gap in between the more agile proficient organizations, the Teslas and the Apples and the Googles and the Facebooks and the Amazons, and the traditional ones, this gap is starting to increase? Have you noticed that? These ones are becoming more and more successful. And this gap is going to continue to increase in the next few years. The next 5 to 10 to 15 years are going to be really interesting in the tech space. And people like you and I that can master the art and science of scaling Agile would have a huge competitive advantage in the next 5 to 15 years as more and more clients, more and more companies look into mastering these practices. And the third element of lean portfolio management is lean governance, where our oversight, supervision, performance tracking practices actually enable agility and not constrain agility. The job of a portfolio management team is to enable value delivery, not restrict value delivery. And unfortunately, sometimes the overhead and the structures that our portfolio governance teams add, they restrict agility at scale. And that is what we want to avoid. And that is step number 5. With me so far? These are the 5 primary steps, which are the secrets of successful SAFe transformations. 5 primary milestones on our SAFe implementation roadmap that would make success with scaled agile implementations predictable. And if we can do that, that is when we really start to see if we implement these 5 simple steps predictably, successfully, effectively, that's when we see people aligning on their mindsets. That's when we see people starting to show up differently. That's when we see the speed of delivery transform. And that is when we start to see the real music of our SAFe implementations. That's what some of our colleagues call. We're in the business of helping our release trains showcase their music like this. All right. So we'll stop here. Thanks, everybody. And thanks, Rudy. Back to you.
Thank you, Harry. Thank you very much for the presentation. I think